All right, welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by English Mountain Spring Water. Lots of things are shutting down temporarily right now, but what isn't shutting down is that incredible all-natural aquifer way up in the English Mountain area of Dandridge. And just unbelievable clean, clear water. 2.5 million gallons a day pour out of that thing, which is just insane. That's, to me, that sounds like Niagara Falls, but it's actually just a babbling brook. Visit their website to learn more. English Mountain H2O. I have their water delivered to my home, and it's literally changed my life. I now just drink it and it only. English Mountain Spring Water. Okay, as I mentioned, during World War II, teams just kind of did their own thing. Some schools nuked football. Some schools played shortened schedules. Teams were made up differently. They just called each other up and said, "Hey, what are you doing on Saturday?" "Yeah, we'll get together." Let's start with this. Do you think Greg Sankey and the SEC leadership, because the presidents would have to go along with it too, do you think they would have the guts to look at the landscape and say, we're doing our own thing and we're not worried about everybody else? Or do you think they'd be team players and wait for an NCAA decision?
I personally don't, because I still think it's a safety issue. It's not sort of about can we do it, and I think until you get a vaccine, I think there's going to be all kinds of logistical issues. I think, you can't just say, well, 50% of our team has had the virus and has recovered,
right,
and then you have guys that haven't, because, yeah, of course, there's the lingering idea. People want to only talk about death, but this is a serious thing that puts people in the hospital, and you can have lasting problems, and you're producing lung issues, and maybe you can't play again after that, and all it takes is one or two players that have that, and you've got a real problem on your hands. So I just think until you've got a vaccine or some sort of reliable treatment, the possible ramifications of trying to do that are just too widespread.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, and again, I threw out the scenario that it disappears for months, and then they say it's going to come back later in the year. The reality is different than the scenario is not going to be that. Life isn't going to be as clean as my scenario.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah.
But for the sake of conversation, that's why I threw it out the way I did. In terms of everything being on the table, though, you mentioned something in between the break that's on the table that I think, folks, it's interesting.
People are talking about all kinds of things and moving the possibility of moving football to the spring and starting in January or February is on the table. Again, wow. Contingency plans, and listen, that TV money is a pretty serious honey hole, and they will figure out whatever it takes to get that played.
Well, I think you said it earlier on football on college campuses with athletics. Football basically foots the bill for everything else in most cases. Now, men's basketball carries its own, but that's about it in terms of revenue sports. It's football way up here, men's basketball. So you need to get that money, especially when it comes to television. Moving it to January,
that's
though,
life-changing.
It is.
Think about what do you do with the
football
NFL
starting
draft?
in January and playing through April.
Well, I think
USFL.
The concept would basically be doing that and then saying, well, there's your spring football, and then let's start back up normally come August or September, essentially.
So 2 seasons.
But
and
here's
3
the
months
thing:
off.
Basically,
if college football's doing that, I would bet you NFL football would be doing that, because college is not going to do that unless there's a real reason to not be playing until January. I would think then you also would probably have the NFL. If that's good enough for the NCAA and the big-time football schools, then all of a sudden you've got that happening.
Yeah, I just think,
and that's just...
There's a thought that the NFL is different because it is a business, and you do have billionaire owners who might be able to convince their players, you're going to be quarantined as a group. You're living in this barracks for the next 3 months, but you're getting paid millions to do it. I still see that difficult, as opposed to college where you got to have a campus.
At least there's a centralized authority in the NFL, which makes it a little bit easier to figure all those things out.
But you're still going to have, in an NFL game in a stadium, even if you're not having fans, you're still talking about several hundred people to be in there to do the television, the referees, the this, the
I think
that.
that's what was sort of lost. And I know everybody wants sports back. I want them back. Everybody does. But sports were the first thing to go in this crisis, and I think they're going to be one of the last things to come back, because I just think people, you think about all the logistics, and of course, again, athletes are going to be at risk if they're the ones that are having to go in there, and especially when we're talking about unpaid athletes.
College, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
I just think unless you have reliable treatments or vaccines, where the risk of if you get this, that you may end up in the hospital, or it's easy to say that as one person, but when you're in charge of 150 people, you can't do that.
Well, and some folks, not everyone, but some people who get this have long-term lung damage
Exactly.
to this. So would you be cutting your career short by playing this 1 year and risking it? And then also, even if you did the sequester thing for an NFL team, and you're all going to be here, and we're keeping on you you're living in Michael Jackson's hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah.
What happens when somebody breaks his leg and you got to sign somebody from the outside? Have they been quarantined where they were?
That's a good question.
Or do you bring somebody? I mean, there are a lot
Do
of
you
variables.
have the
to this thing.
XFL's Team 9?
Yeah, that's right. They had a team that was
Yeah.
ready. But
Yeah.
if it's me, though, and I'm Greg Sankey, I will have 8 million plans. And most of my plans would be screw everybody else. Let's look at
Yeah.
us first.
Yeah,
And if you can go that
Agreed.
way, go that way.
that's true.
All right. The final word is next. We're talking about money. Somebody who's got enough money, Peyton Manning. Apparently he knows that. We'll tell you why. Come on back on the Sports Source.